Hello, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Judith Patterson. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Texas, and it's Tuesday, so usually we make a card from the catalog. However, my stamp of the week this week is framed in Festive, and it's not in any of our catalogs. You can find it in my online shop, but you won't find it in a catalog. I wanted to go ahead and spotlight this one this week because it's available while supplies last or until January the 4th, and like I said, it's not in the catalog. Something else that's fun about this set is since it is all sentiments, I can pair it with any other stamp set or designer series paper. Of course, it's all holiday themed. So I'm having fun this week using a bunch of different products, all with this one stamp set. So let me flip my camera around and we'll start stamping. So there's not a lot of stamping involved on either of these cards. We're going to be making two. And I'm going to start by finding my stamp. Okay, so I have the Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas stamp, and I have a small piece of balmy blue cardstock. I have cut this to 2 inches by 1 3/4 inch, and I'm going to use my Stampin' Buddy, my embossing buddy. Love this thing. And I'm using my Versamark ink to stamp this stamp. I want to get it nice and sticky with this Versamark. I'm just going to center this up on this little piece of scrap. I didn't give myself a lot of wiggle room here. I'm hoping that'll give me a pretty straight stamp. If I don't have very much cardstock to stamp on, theoretically, it'll make it a little easier to get a straight stamp. We'll see. Not bad. Okay, so I'm going to use my little reverse tweezers. And if you got the embossing kit, I had a blank moment. If you got the embossing kit that was in the mini catalog, then you'll have some tweezers similar to mine. Mine are really very, very old. I've had them for a long, long time. And you'll get an embossing buddy as well as a tray to sprinkle your powder over. So I like to use these tweezers for 2 reasons. One, when I'm actually heating up the embossing powder, I'm not going to burn my little fingers. But the other reason is I'm clumsy, y'all. So clumsy. And so a lot of times if I'm not using my tweezers, I stick my fingers in the embossing powder all over my Versamark and I have to start over. So that's no fun. Sometimes I can just add more embossing powder, but sometimes I have to restamp. Okay, I'm going to heat emboss, and then I'll be right back. Okay, I love watching that change from just a little powder to that beautiful embossed sentiment. Okay, and that was literally all the stamping that is going to happen on this card. It's still a cute card though. So the designer series paper I'm using is Storybook Gnomes, and I have a piece of that DSP. It's got the trees on the back, so I guess really you could use either side, but then you might want to change your cardstock here. But I thought this Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas was perfect with all these little birds and the bunny and the foxes and the little deer. So I have another piece of basic white. This one is 2 1/8 by 1 7/8. So it's a skosh over the 2 inches and a skosh away from the 2 inches. So either side there, you want to be equidistant from the 2. So I'm just gluing that right on top of that. And then this piece, I don't think I ever said a while ago, this is 3 1/2 inches wide by 4 inches tall. And I'm going to glue this one to this soft suede cardstock, which is cut 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. You can use whatever adhesive you like, but I sure do like this liquid glue. I didn't use glue for the longest time, and then I heard another demonstrator say that that was her favorite thing, and I thought, what? Why would that be your favorite thing? And now I find that I love it too, and it is my favorite. Although, I use a lot of Stampin' Dimensionals. Okay, so this is the Balmy Blue ribbon. This was in the mini catalog, and it is going to be in the new mini catalog as well. And I was really grateful for that because I love this ribbon. So I'm going to put 2 glue dots on each end of the ribbon here. And as you saw, I just cut this ribbon a little bit longer, probably 1 inch to 1.5 inches longer than my cardstock. So it's probably 5 to 5.5 inches. I can measure it real quick and give you a specific there. I don't typically measure these exactly. I just kind of guess at it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, 5 3/4. 5.5 would be plenty though. So I'm just going to wrap this around, covering up that edge where the cardstock and the DSP meet. Okay, so now I'm going to use those dimensionals I was talking about. I especially like using dimensionals whenever I have ribbon around the back, because that can make it kind of warped if you try to just use adhesive to glue it straight down. So this makes room for that ribbon in between the 2 cardstocks. My card base is Balmy Blue. It is cut 8.5 inches by 5.5 inches, and then I scored it at 4 1/4 inches. So it's just a piece of cardstock cut in half and then scored in half. Make sure it's opening the right way. I cannot tell you how many times I have glued down pieces on my card base to find that I glued them down upside down and my card opened wrong. Sometimes it works and we just call it a happy accident. Sometimes I have to start over. But usually, even if I have to redo it, I don't really have to redo it. I just use my Take Your Pick tool, and I can separate everything. Okay, so I was going to put this up here, and I think I still will. I was thinking about covering up that little deer hiney, but I think we'll leave the deer tail showing, and we'll just go ahead and put this at the top like I had originally planned. So you just want to make sure that your dimensionals are over towards the edge so that they're not on top of your ribbon. And there we go. That is our first card. Easy breezy. Took no time at all. We got to use a little bit of a technique with that heat embossing. Our next card also uses the Storybook Designer Series paper. And instead of heat embossing, this time I'm going to use a couple of dies. So I've got the stitched rectangle dies and the layering circle dies. So in my opinion, those are great dies to buy for your first sets of dies, because they're very basic shapes that you'll use over and over and over again. I find myself using these all the time. So I have Calypso Coral as my ink. And again, there is not a lot of stamping on this one. I have a piece of basic white cardstock that's about 2 1/4 inches by 2 1/4 inches. It doesn't have to be precise. You just want to make sure that your circle, when you go to cut out your sentiment, will cut out a full circle. So at least I would say 2 1/4 inches by 2 1/4 inches. So I'm stamping from Our Home to Yours on the circle. And then for the inside of the card, I'm going to grab that Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas stamp again that we used on that last card, because it's gnomes. And they're little. So I'm just going to stamp that on a piece of basic white cardstock that's 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches, and that's going to go inside the card. And you don't have to remember all these dimensions, measurements, or write them down, because you can find them over on my blog, and I will link to that in the description below. So I'm going to start with the layering circles dies, the 4th smallest circle. Okay, and then for the scalloped circle, I'm going to use the 4th smallest scallop. And I'm using Calypso Coral cardstock, and again, this measures 2 1/4 inches by 2 1/4 inches. Okay, and then for my stitched rectangle, I'm using the 3rd largest rectangle, and I'm going to use it to cut out a piece of Pool Party cardstock. So this Balmy Blue. This Balmy Blue cardstock measures 3 1/4 inches by 4 5/8 of an inch. You could probably have a piece that's 4 1/2 inches. It's just a little tight, and I wanted to make sure there was plenty of room to get my die on there. Okay, and now that I have those pieces cut out, I'm going to use the gnomes dies to cut out the mushroom and 2 gnomes. So the way I'm going to go about that is I'm just going to cut a mushroom house out of this DSP. There, doesn't have to be perfect, I just need it out of there. And then I'm going to take my snips and do the same thing again, and I'm using blues. I want the ones that have a little bit of balmy blue in them. So I'm going to take this one here, and then this one here. Okay, so now the dies match perfectly with these gnomes. So I'm just going to line up the die and the gnome and then cut them each out. Okay, so now we have all of our pieces that were die cut. And I have a piece of that same designer series paper. This one has mushrooms on the back, but I like the snowflake side for this. But this is also from Storybook Gnomes. It measures 4 1/4 inches by 5 1/2 inches, and I have it on another balmy blue card base. That, again, this is the other half of that first card base that we used, and so it also measures 8 1/2 inches by 5 1/2 inches, and is scored at 4 1/4 inches. But again, all these measurements are over on my blog. So the first thing I'm going to do is use my dimensionals to pop this piece up. Goes right in the center. Okay, I'm going to use liquid glue to put the mushroom down. I'm letting the bottom and the left side hang over just a little bit. For the gnomes, I'm going to use dimensionals one more time. I want the hat, the very top of the gnome, to not have a dimensional on it. Just the tippy part. Okay, so I'm going to put her right about there. And then this little guy can go right next to her. I kind of like to have it look like they're holding hands. I just think that's sweet. Okay, then I'm going to use liquid glue to put the sentiment piece on the scalloped circle here. I'm going to put liquid glue on the back of this as well. And I'm just going to slide this under. See, I put too much. It was too high up there. Let's pull that off a little bit. You want to get the dimensional off because this is going to be tucked in right there. I'm going to go ahead and take that dimension. No, there it goes. I had it all wadded up, but it's okay now. There we go. Then if you want to, you can add another dimensional right underneath the tippy part of this layered circle. Take your pick tool, comes in handy at this point, but I didn't grab mine. There we go. So just stick that in there, and then the inside piece can go inside your card. Again, with just a little bit of liquid glue. And there are our two quick Christmas cards using framed and festive stamps with the Storybook Gnomes Designer Series paper. And again, the Designer Series paper and the stamps are available while supplies last or until January 4th, whichever comes first. Okay, the hat was begging me. I went ahead and repositioned it so that the dimensional was right there. So, there we go. I hope that you enjoyed these cards and maybe get a laugh out of my stamping awkwardness. Let me know if you have any stamping questions, and as usual, I know that I didn't actually make a card from the catalog this time, but I will be back to that in the next week or so. So if there's anything from the catalogs that you would like to see made on a video, then be sure to let me know. You can send me an email, leave a comment on this tutorial on YouTube. Whatever you need to do, just contact me. And I am starting a Facebook group, so if you'd like to be part of my online stamping community, I would love to have you over there and see what you're working on. So I'll leave the link in the comments to that below as well, or not the comments, the description as well. All right, y'all, have a great week. Happy stamping.